Grief isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamoni, the founder of the Empowered Grief Journey coaching and podcast platform. Each episode brings real conversations with people from around the world who have navigated profound loss and found the strength to rebuild their lives with courage and intention. Together, we'll explore what it means to move from survival to integration, reclaim your identity, honor your grief journey, and create a future grounded in resilience and purpose. Walk with us as we transform grief into growth one story at a time. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to invite you guys to head over to empoweredgriefjourney.com where you can explore recent podcast episodes, grab your copy of the Empowered Grief Journey anthology, and book a free grief clarity call to start your own Empowered Grief Journey. On today's episode, I have a wonderful guest with us. Her name is Colleen Quinn. She's a psychologist, mystic, breathwork practitioner, and author of Essence Merging. In her private practice spanning decades, Colleen uses somatic experiencing, internal family systems, and breathwork to find and heal our body's stored traumas. She has a beautiful story of grief and learning lessons that have come out of her own journey today. And so I'm very excited to introduce her to you guys. And we're going to get started here in a moment. So, Colleen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. And I do want to just take a moment to applaud you for this mission of empowering grief because it is a universal life lesson. And we know that all lessons only come, all growth comes from an uncomfortable place. So we have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable to rise up to the highest version of ourselves. And you're doing that beautifully and inspiring people. So thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't hear that often, but I appreciate that so much. And you're very right, by the way. Grief is a big catalyst of change and growth in our life in many ways. It changes our identity, it changes the core of who we are in many ways. But as you said, it's a learning opportunity when we can see it. And I try to tell people, especially listeners on the show, this doesn't mean you're going to find it out on day one or week one or month one. It just doesn't work like that. It's going to show itself to you when you're ready to see it. And for some people, that can be years. So there's no right or wrong as far as time and how you do this. It's not about right and wrong in that process, but when it comes to you naturally and when you're ready to receive it, it will show itself to you and become an empowerment tool. So,
Yeah.
so Colleen, I wanted to start off the show by having you share a little bit more about yourself with our listeners and tell us a little bit about your grief journey.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the segue of how the lessons come in their own time because my grief journey was quite long. I was 27 years old, the mother of two young children, and I had a young brother who was 12 years younger than me. I was a surrogate mother to him. Our mother had bipolar disorder, and I was really a safe base for him. To this day, other than my husband, he was the only person I talked to every single day. And when he was 15, we talked one day, usual conversation. The next day, he died in a car accident. And that was definitely the most difficult journey for my entire family. Um, and it turned into that grief turned into complicated depression for me because there was this delusional part. Our egos try to come up with these stories to protect us. So my ego was trying to say to me, this isn't right. God is this patriarchal being outside of you who doesn't know what's going on because clearly a mother with bipolar disorder would not be able to withstand such a trauma. And so this should have never happened. God was wrong, and you can be angry at God. Well, Chris, that was 3 years. 3 years that where when we close our hearts like that, we're closing our hearts in protection. We're trying to protect ourselves from the pain, but we're closing off from all feelings. And when we close our hearts to feelings, we close our hearts to life. And I closed my heart to love. So I'm pushing God out for 3 years. Finally, after 3 years, I couldn't take it anymore. And I was driving home from work. It was dark at night. I pulled into a church parking lot and I started sobbing. And all I could say was, I'm so angry with you, God. Please take the hardness off of my heart. That's all I could say. But that was a very surrendered, vulnerable, when tears are flowing, your heart is open. And those types of prayers are the prayers, in my experience, that are always heard immediately. So it's interesting to me that for 3 years, I held on to this energy that, my brother died and it would dishonor him to enjoy life, even though he was the funniest guy I knew, is very selfless, very loving. And so my ego has me believing these distortions. I'm not laughing and I'm depressed. But in that moment, it all lifted. And it was like this divine knowing came into me that instead of the story that I had wrapped around it, that this was a mistake and I was a victim and I suffered this great loss, this story came into me that how lucky am I to have known this selfless, loving being, funny, very fun and playful for 15 years. And what's amazing, Chris, is right after that, my brother always wanted us to own our own home because I had two young children. It was big for him, probably more so for him than me. Money dropped in our laps. We bought a house. It was like the prodigal son story, where when I came back to love with this broken, open heart, love received me back and just showered me with blessings. And my love of life came back, the thaw came to my heart. But I want to jump forward in the story to, like, I don't know, 25 years later. I was being trained to be a breath worker in the Netherlands, and we talked a lot about energy. This energy realm is as real as this material realm. Quantum physics supports it. We all know it. We know it as babies. Energy is our primary language. We're very astute at encoding it, and we know it in our lives. You can walk into a room and feel the energy of the room, even though nothing's been said, right? So I'm in the Netherlands, and we're doing a deep dive in energy. And I myself had a car accident with a near-death experience about 15 years after my brother died. And the breathwork trainer came down through Leonard Orr, it's like he brought breathwork to the West. She's very esteemed. She said, "Wow, you really drew that experience to you." And that's controversial, but it was a shock, but there was a resonance within me that I had swum around in this death energy, that part of me died when my brother died for so long. And even though I had thawed and come back into life mostly, I wasn't completely thawed. I wasn't completely in love with life, because one of the great loves of my life was in another realm. And I saw that even though I was hit head on in my lane, I did draw that energy to me. It was the part of me that was forever dead when my brother died. And what's fascinating about that is I was in the tunnel. My heart stopped. My blood pressure when I came back was 60 over 30, but my heart had stopped. I was in the tunnel with the light, and the light speaks to us in thoughts. You speak in thoughts, and it's pure love. It's just, and whatever the light asks you to do, you're like, oh, of course, I'm definitely, yes, that's the right way to go. So love said to me, you don't have to go back but I would like you to go back. It would be better for you. And I chose to come back here. Now, that was so powerful for me because for the first time in my whole life, I was 45 when I had the near-death experience car accident. I chose to come here. And that's really empowered grief. That I'm choosing it all. I'm now in with both feet. And it changes everything. It flips the coin around the story. So while the first coin flipped that I was lucky to know this selfless, loving being, the second coin flipped that I am fully alive and that this is a precious gift. And I can come to it with my full heart in any moment.
That is an absolutely beautiful story, and I'll share that I'm very spiritual in my own walk of life. But to hear somebody who's actually had a near-death experience and to make that call it a claim, if you will. But I love that you said I chose to come back here. I love that you take ownership of that because I do believe that in those moments of life, and I've researched near-death experiences a lot lately, and I've realized that I believe personally that I think those are moments of life that do happen. I think it's a part where our soul gets removed away from the physical world enough to get into that higher realm where we're going to end up anyway when we pass on to the next life. But to your point, I've heard so many people and stories in that situation say they did have a choice. They could purposely stay there if they wanted to, but other times they chose to come back. And I think in a lot of ways, sometimes we choose to come back because we have unfinished work to do here and we still have more to give. What was that like for you when you made that choice to come back here? Did it feel like you had more work to either do for yourself or you had more to give to others?
That's a really interesting question, Chris, because as I went on, like initially I was in such a high for such a long time because I was with love, and like it really removes any fear around what's going to happen. The Hindus have a different word for what happens at the end of your life. We call it death. They call it dropping your body because over there, meditation is such a cultural phenomenon that they're used to in your body. Your consciousness leaves your body when you meditate. They're used to that experience, and they know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That consciousness is going to live on forever, and there's a comfort in that. However, I don't know. I guess I don't make things easy. I had a time years later as I'm really trying to go inward and release these traumas from my body. And that car accident, I mean, I had 17 broken bones. I had 5 surgeries. I
Wow.
almost died. It was traumatic for sure. So as I'm doing that work to release the trauma, again, I had a moment where I was angry. You chose to come back here. You could have just beamed up and that would have been the easy way. But there's a you revisit these things over and over to incorporate them deeper and deeper. And again, as I worked through it, I realized what a precious gift these sensate bodies are. We get to feel the wind, taste our food, hug another human being. The deepest connections are when we gaze into somebody's eyes and see into their souls. I mean, these are precious, precious moments. And there's also what that came out of it, the real gift of grief for me has been that it slows life down. It causes us to linger, and we realize that your average Tuesday night dinner is precious. That's what we're going to remember are those times we're all together and we're just laughing and connecting, and that laughter is really underrated. So as I would go into the grief and let it do its work on me, what bubbles up out of the grief is the joy. And that's a fully open heart where you feel it all. You can feel that sadness and you feel the bliss simultaneously.
That's a really beautiful way to describe grief because as you were talking about grief, what kept rattling around in my brain is that there's really no right or wrong way for us to grieve. There's also no, um, there's just really not a right or wrong way to do it. There's not a up or down or left or right or things like that. It's just grief is meant to be a full experience, like you're talking about, where two things can coexist at the same time, like joy and sadness. They can be there at the same moment. When you brought up that grief slows things down. I learned that after I lost my child to stillbirth. It felt like you were driving down the freeway at 100 miles an hour and slammed on the brakes. That's what life felt like. And while the world kept spinning super fast, I'm over here just kind of taking things in nice and slow and nice and easy. And I think to your point, we learn what those precious moments are in life. We learn that spending time with certain people or being in a certain place that we like to enjoy and go, or just those moments of life, we tend to stay in them longer and enjoy them for more than just a quick grab and go, like most of society trains us to do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one more thing that I want to share about my grief story that I think could help a lot of people. That is that it I really truly believe that the depth of our grief is commensurate with the depth of our love, right? The emotion,
Elaborate on that.
well, emotion is energy in motion. So the more your heart was open to form that bond, that love, the more you are going to feel the loss at the when the relationship changes. We tend to initially think that with death, it's over. But I want to name that after my brother died, every single night for months, he came to me in my dreams, and every time he was dead. He wasn't like a little kid, he was dead, coming over from the other side just to be with me. And it's not every night now, it's from time to time, but he still does come. And I want to bring this up because there's a technique called seeding your dreams. When you say to your loved one, because love is the only energy there is, and what you're feeling is that love connection, that wholeness, that unity that you had with this other soul. That's brings us back to the unity we all had before the Big Bang. When God was all these unique forms, we were all in there together, we were all one. Well, you feel that with that other soul. That's why the bliss, we feel bliss, we call it love, but it's really the union. So when you say to love, that loved one, your daughter, my brother, I miss you. I need you. I would love for you to come and visit me tonight. And I'm not saying that everyone will remember those dreams because some of us never remember our dreams, but you will probably, if you're in tune, have a feeling, at least a feeling of connection. And you have nothing to lose. That their energy lives on lives on forever. They are here. It's just a realm, it's a curtain across the realm to divide you, but you can, in the same way I conversed with love in the tunnel, we can converse with any form of love. So
That's
I,
really
yeah.
That's beautifully put. I had visitations from my grandfather and my son after they passed, and I wish that I wish I could have more dreams like you're having, honestly, because they were. I try to tell people if you haven't had one of these happen to you before, it is a very surreal experience in many ways. Your dream doesn't feel like just another dream you have at night. You feel like you're sitting in a room, just like you're watching this podcast, right next to this person, talking with them, hugging them, showing love with them. It's like you're just right here in the realness of things. That's what a visitation is like, and I think it's a very powerful way, as Colleen's alluded to, which I think is very true. We are still connected with them. It may not physically and tangibly be here in this world, but they do oftentimes show up. And Colleen, I was going to ask you too about signs because I've talked to many people who are very spiritually adept, and they all get signs in the form of coins or maybe a smell of perfume or cigarette or cigar smoke, things like that. Do you get signs from your loved one?
Well, Chris, that's a great question. When Eddie died, I was 27. I had a very different relationship with God, and I said to Eddie, "Listen, if you're okay, if you're alive and you're in a better place, I need you to send me a cardinal and a blue jay right now." Swoop, they both came into the yard. And so whenever I see a cardinal and a blue jay together, I'm like, "Oh my God, Eddie, you're here. I'm so grateful that you're here. What a love gift." I mean, they're in that cosmic realm where they can bend reality. So ask. You have nothing to lose, just ask. And it's so comforting. Like, how comforting is that he, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm just in a different place, but I'm okay and we're together. It's incredible.
You know, that's a beautiful part of grief, I think, when you allow yourself to stay open to those things. Because I always like to share with people that grief changes our identity, it changes our beliefs, it changes our convictions in many ways, it changes, what our life trajectory is going to be. We make different choices. It changes us comprehensively as a person. And so to leave ourselves open to that, I think is something very, like you said, comforting because a lot of people go through grief and stay stuck in grief. And I don't blame people for why they do, by the way, because I was there myself many times. And I can say though, when you're in that place of feeling stuck, there's not a lot to hang on to sometimes, and that can be very scary and very dark. But when you allow yourself to stay open to the fact that you can still communicate and connect with those ones you've lost, and it's about trying to find and discover that. And there's a lot of different modalities, as you guys have heard. Colleen sharing her story about Eddie sending a blue jay and a cardinal. I do believe our past loved ones, they send birds. I don't know why, but they do. I lived in New Hampshire, Colleen. I meant to share that with you, but I would never have cardinals come flying in the yard all the time. But on days where my grief was very heavy after losing my son, a cardinal would fly by and land on a tree in the same spot, like
Mm.
clockwork. And you can't predict it. You can't say it's going to happen, but it does, and it provides that level of comfort for you on those very hard days.
You know what's interesting too, Chris, is that as a spirit animal, cardinals mean new beginnings.
Mm.
I mean, I just learned that a few years ago, but isn't that appropriate? Because they have had a birth to another dimension. They're still with us, they're still here, but they've just been born to another dimension.
It's truly empowering, honestly, and I found a lot of comfort looking at those signs. I've had moments. I'll never forget this one from last year. I was driving away from a Target one day, and the smell of my grandfather's old van from when I was a kid, way back, like 5, 6 years old, kind of thing. And I don't have many memories that far back, but we got in the car, started driving. I smelled his pipe tobacco. I smelled the van, and my wife laughed at me because while we're driving, I sat there and said, "Hi, Grandpa. Nice to know you're here. Thanks for saying hi." Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I mean, I couldn't explain it. I can't sit here and tangibly give you a reason why or how it happened, but I can say it did. And and grief hits you in those moments too when you see signs. You get kind of choked up, your emotions come, your body responds to it, your mind will start going to memories and places. It's important to pay attention to all those things when you do have an experience like that because that's them communicating with you that it might be, the one I've had too is ear ringing a lot lately. I don't know why that's been happening, and it only happens in certain times with messages and things that are supposed to be said. But when you allow yourself to pay attention to those things, you might find out that, yeah, that reminds me of my time with my brother or my son or my grandfather or my dad. It's a beautiful grounding force as you're navigating grief.
Absolutely. This is I don't know how you feel about reincarnation. There's a lot to support it in nature, right? The raindrop has its unique life experience coming to Earth, and all the wind and barometric pressure and velocity, temperature changes all etch that drop to become the most beautiful snowflake before splat. It hits the Earth, and then it goes up and does it again, right? So it's inherent in all of nature. Well, my dad was a fireman at 4 fire companies. He loved being a fireman. He volunteered and he worked, and it was just who he was. Well, my grandson has played at being a fireman his whole life since he could talk and walk. He's 9. He still loves fire stuff. When he was about 5 years old, we were doing a Zoom call because he lives in LA, and he said, and he wanted to play this pretend fireman game, and he wanted my husband to be the chief. I said, McCoy, why don't you be the chief? He goes, he calls me Coco. My name's Colleen. He calls me Coco. Coco, you know I can't do that. I work at 4 fire companies. And
Oh.
I said, hi, Dad. And he said, hi. That was the extent of it. I'm like, okay.
That that's such a beautiful moment, and that's a prime example of when signs happen when we least expect it, and we're not. This is what I think I try to show people with guests like you on the show when we talk about signs. This isn't ask for something and you shall receive it the way you want it, when you want it, how you want it. It will show up in moments like you just described where you go, "Oh, hi," taken off guard, and you're kind of, and what's nice about that is you're kind of chucked out of reality for a minute and you're put really into focus what's going on and being present. And I think that's when we're really able to connect with our spirit.
Absolutely. And and honestly, this whole experience with death is here to illuminate for all of us that we are energy beings having this human experience. But let us never forget that we are fully God. We are limitless. We have the capacity to tap into all the supreme powers of love. That's what it's really all about, to remind us not to take this material world so seriously, but to savor the energy behind the material. That's what it's all about because it's all love.
So, Colleen, something you brought up earlier when we started the podcast was this concept of delusions we fall under as we go through grief. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you think those delusions might be and how we can go through those in a healthy way of transformation as we walk through our grief and healing journey?
Yeah, well, I think a common delusion is the person is dead. They're gone. It's over. It's severed. There's nothing left. That hurts our hearts. And honestly, I believe that love is merciful. I mean, just as an example, I think when we go to sleep every night, it is a mercy that our energy bodies can loosen from these dense physical forms and surf in liminal space with the energy. The collective energy is what God really is. And even when we don't remember it, if we're being honest, most of us feel a bit of a thud in the morning when we wake up and we're carrying around these dense physical forms. But it's when we can do those things to get in touch with and remember that everything is energy. Every person, every plant, every animal, every rock, everything is 99.99% space. It's all energy. And that is where the deeper meaning is. And when you do this work, this trauma work of really diving into your grief, your sorrows, your traumas, whatever it is, and you allow them to do their work on you, what always happens is the stories, these delusions that we've wrapped around our experiences are like a penny that gets flipped. So when I wrap around they're dead, God is wrong, God, I'm smarter than God, and all those, every delusion is going to create a wedge and pain for me. And love is very patient. Love will wait and let us make those choices and feel how empty it is and how painful it is. And I call them now love squeezes because the squeezes get a little tighter and tighter as we go farther and farther away from love to the point you're crying in a church parking lot going, just take this hardness off my heart. I can't carry it. It was a great weight. And so I think delusions come in all forms, but whenever we start thinking we're alone or we have to do it on our own power or God is anything other than pure love, that's going to lead us to a hardened heart, and there's a lot of pain there.
What would you recommend to people who are going through grief and feel that hardness on their heart? Because I have talked to many people in my journey, especially lost parents like me that have lost an infant. It's hard for us to wrap our heads around what we just experienced. And we go through a lot of feelings like numbness and feeling hopeless and feeling like, life just happened in reverse for me. What's the point of me going on anymore? What would you give advice to for people who are in that throes of their grief and trauma that maybe there's a step or two they could take, small ones, to help them make that journey forward?
So that's a loaded question. It depends on the depth of the grief. There are small things. I would say the first small thing you could do is notice when the voices in your head are running around crazy and quiet them down. And the way to quiet them down is by literally coming into your breath and making, instead of having unconscious breathing, standing in your breath, consciously breathing. That conscious breathing is a gateway to presence. It takes us out of our head and into the moment to interact with life. You're coming back into life. And as you come into life, your heart opens up and thaws, everything becomes more vibrant. So don't let all the voices in our head are our traumatized, wounded children. Don't let them run rampant because children don't know how to drive the bus of our experience. You have a true nature, your energy being that they want to trust, they want to get to know. I mean, a big part of healing is getting to know these wounded children, loving them. Love is the only true healer. But parenting is warm and firm, so you got to quiet them down and say, I'll hold you and we're going to walk forward. I'm going to come into my breath, into presence. I'm going to dare to be alive in this moment. So that's the small thing. But if the grief is too big, I there are several methods where we can loosen from our body. Guided. I would always use a guide, a breath worker, a somatic experiencer. Even legally, we can do ketamine assisted journeys. They all do the same thing in your brain. They shut down the default mode network. That is what we found in our brain that maps onto Freud's construct of the ego. It's all those wounded children, shuts that down, brings us into our midbrain, which is the seat of our soul. You literally will feel your energy loosen, and you can, with a guide, you hover over these traumatic experiences, but you're looking through the eyes of love. So you're fully feeling it, but you're not overwhelmed by it. And that's how those coins get flipped. So I highly recommend those journeys because every single experience is stored in our body. And you said it, Chris, a big part is the integration. You're not going to let it go, but when you can love it and make peace with it, it's not going to hurt you anymore.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you that question because a lot of society tells us these big I'm trying to lose my words on it, but they have these big sayings in society of let it go and get over it, move on, and life moves forward. And I think when we do that, we're dismissing our grief experience and we're dismissing our ability to process and understand what happens to us. And something you said earlier about the material world, I think so many of us get caught up in that with our job titles, our career status, our friendships, relationships are we get caught up in all these distractions. And I think grief is something that pumps the brakes on that, slows things down enough for us to really see what matters, what's really at the core of things. And when we have that opportunity, when we go through grief, we're able to process things. We're able to understand things. We're able to see what I like to call the hidden gifts, lessons, and blessings behind it. Because I truly believe, speaking as a lost parent, we can't get our child back. And that's the thing that hurts is that we're not going to get over it. We're not going to move on from it. But how do we integrate this into our life in a way that will help us move forward, that we remember and we honor, but we don't forget? What's a way for us to do some legacy work so that that makes us feel good inside, gives our grief some purpose? And by the way, the bigger part of that, coming back to love, is that we're not the only one walking through our experience. We're not the only one who got in a car accident head on. We're not the only one who lost a child. We're not the only one who lost a parent. I don't say that to write off experiences, but I say it to acknowledge that you have a gift now because of this trauma, because of this grief. And if we allow the negative forces of that thing to take over, we'll miss the gifts on the other side, but we also won't be able to show love or empathy or compassion on a deep level for people who are just starting to walk the journey we've already walked. And what not a greater gift of life, by the way, to let that love, as you say, flow through us when we run into people who walk that path we're walking and we can become the guides to help those people. And we can change the phrase from hurt people to hurt people, help people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And loved people love people, right? Helped people help people. Someone helped you, you helped someone else. Ram Dass said we're all just walking each other home. And that's the truth. There's a Jewish expression, what is truer than truth? Experience.
Mm.
This realm is all about these experiences that I think you said it earlier, they're tailor made for us. We came here with these soul blueprints to have these experiences, to find out where we're out of alignment with love and to become more like love. It's that is what this crazy ride is all about. And love is fun, it's playful, it's joyful, it's worthy, it's appreciative. We can choose in any moment, and it starts with conscious breath, to come out of our head into this moment because it's our true nature is that causeless joy. That was radical for me when I was steeped in it. But it is our true nature. When we get out of our heads, that is naturally what's going to bubble up. And it's a celebration of life. What a great gift.
It's a beautiful gift. I wanted to ask you, reflecting as we're getting close to the end of the podcast here, but you've had quite the grief journey. You've lost a brother, Eddie, lost him at a young age of 15. You got into a head-on car accident, and I can't even imagine the trauma of breaking that many bones and having a near-death experience. That one is beyond my realm of experience of life. But to go through all of that and become the person that you are today, I can just tell that those two experiences, had they not happened the way that they did and taught you the lessons they taught you, I don't think you'd be who you are today.
Absolutely not. I am grateful, and love was with me all along. That's one of these things we viscerally experience when we're in those deep meditative states, that we were never alone. We were never alone. Love was always with us. And Michael Ferrante, I don't know if you ever listened to his music. He has a great line about in a song about being in tremendous sadness, but that's when the teacher is in the room.
Mm.
And that's the thing. Love draws near. When we need love the most, love draws near. I don't know about you, but I do everything in service of love. I love this divine conversation. I love to be called by love. If I can help somebody, like there's there is no greater experience in this realm than being called on by love and knowing that I had a positive impact. I'm like, oh my God, it like that brings me to weep. Like you picked me. It's like being picked for the softball team. Oh my gosh, I got picked. You know, and I couldn't have done it if I didn't walk it myself. That's how we learn. Yeah,
Yeah, building off what you said, I truly believe now, and I preface to my audience all the time, I could not say this to you in the throes of grief. It would actually send me off a Richter scale if somebody said this to me in the minutes I had hard grief. But grief is our greatest teacher. It's the thing that will show us what we need, not what we want, but what we need in our life to move forward. And it only shows up, by the way, in the worst of moments, but our pathway out of those moments, and we're going to be a different person from those moments on. And to your point, when we can accept love, when we can accept kindness, I also love, by the way, this conversation today, because the other thing that's come up a lot is we don't have to compare grief journeys and who had it worst or who had it different. We don't even have to go there. We can look at each other as human to human without titles and description, all that stuff, and say, I'm a human, you're a human. I've had my experience, you've had your experience. And when we step in that place of learning, that place of love, that place of kindness, that place of gratitude and empathy, compassion and teaching, I mean, there's so much in life in there that you won't find in the material world. You won't find it over there. It exists over here. And I truly believe that this is what life is about, conversations like you and I are having today.
that's right. Because why? It fosters that connection. It brings us back to that union that we're all looking for. And there's just one other thing I want to add to what you beautifully just elucidated for all of us, Chris, and that is that yes, you can take as long as you want in the throes of grief. There is no timeline, and love will patiently wait. Continue to knock on your heart, continue to woo you back. That's beyond words. That's awe-inspiring. To feel the love that great, it gets us to really start to understand what love actually is. How great is that? And it fosters this connection, this unity, this wholeness.
That's
How
beautifully
lucky are
said.
we?
Well, Colleen, I just want to say, as we wrap up the show, this has been a wonderful episode on the podcast, and I'm really grateful for our connection today. Um,
Me as well. Thank you so much.
and before we wrap up, though, I always leave listeners with this. I know you have a book that you've sent over in an email. Could you tell us a little bit more about your book and if listeners are interested, where they can find it?
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking. It's called Essence Merging, and it really is my spiritual journey. After I didn't talk about it here today, but I had a second near-death experience. So, I needed these lessons. So that second near-death experience got me to realize that I was living on gifted time and that take reflection in my life, whose lives had I really touched, and that I really only wanted to be love in every moment. So it was another crying, prostrate on the floor, let me be love in every moment. That stripped down prayer led me to breath work, and that conscious breath work practice just started this divine conversation in every moment. So it's sort of a primer of what you can expect when you're in this divine conversation. But all spiritual journeys are ultimately a health journey. So it's healing your body, healing your mind, healing your heart, and then ultimately healing your soul. And it's what you can expect on this journey. I talk about releasing a lot of trauma, and those how spirit led me to healer after healer at the right time to release these traumas, to be able to live in a lightness of being. So it's what you can expect when you turn your life over to love.
Well, that's really beautiful. Where can they find a copy of this book if they're interested in reading it?
Sure. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's in pre-order now. It will be released April 30th, but it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. So I'll send you a link and maybe you can put it at the bottom of the podcast notes.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And if listeners want to connect with you outside of the podcast, do you have a website or social media they can join you at?
I do. It's Essence Merging is my website, essencemerging.com or colleenquinn.com. Both come to the same website. I'm getting together a newsletter that will mostly be clips from podcasts because I think people would rather listen than read. And then on Instagram, it's Essence Merging as well. Yep.
Per- Perfect. Well, for you guys listening today, I will have Colleen's links in the show notes. When you get done with this episode, be sure to go follow her. As you guys have found from throughout this podcast episode, we've had a powerful conversation about how grief doesn't have to be the thing society says it has to be, that love can trump over grief, and love can guide us forward in those moments, even in the darkest moments of grief. Love will still be there for us, waiting for us in those moments. Colleen, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you guys for joining Colleen and I on today's episode of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to share it with somebody you know who may need to hear this today. And if you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and unsure of how to move forward in your grief, you don't have to figure it out alone. I offer free grief clarity calls where we can talk through what you're experiencing, help you understand what's going on beneath the surface, and find a clear path forward. You can book your call at empoweredgriefjourney.com. I also want to invite you guys to go visit the website so you can explore past episodes there and subscribe to the Empower Grief Journey on Apple and Podbean so you guys never miss a conversation. The Empower Grief Journey is all about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. I want you to know that you're never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.